Hi, this is Howard Campbell, and this is another edition of Illegal Ideas. And we're here with a friend of mine who is going to share with us an experience that he had, and that's all the framing I'm going to give it.
Okay. Well, it was the middle of the day, and on this particular day, I had decided in the morning that it was the right time for me to take another dose of dimethyltryptamine. So I had work to do in the morning, and I went out in the morning early. I hadn't yet showered, and I worked all morning till about lunchtime. I went home, and I thought that I would go ahead and take the trip that I had intended to take, and then take a shower, and then go back around the rest of my day, because the DMT trip is fairly short-lived. So, I got my machine ready, which is the vaporizing tool that I use for smoking DMT, with a fairly large dose, which is about 70 milligrams. And I went to my bed, and because I had intended to take a shower, I took off my clothes, and I laid down, or I sat down on my bed, and I started to vaporize using the machine. Within just a few tokes, as the thing goes, I was soon far beyond the reaches of reality, and I laid back, holding my breath deep with the final toke that I took, and I felt myself leave my body and float into an upright position, where I was in this jeweled, domed structure, and I looked up into the dome, and it was spinning and cascading with hallucinations, kind of fractal holes spinning in and out with every color of the rainbow. No patterns that were really recognizable because there was really so much movement. And I found myself looking around the dome in what I felt was like I was a disembodied head, just consciousness. And I looked over to the right, and there in this spinning mass of beautiful hallucination, there was this dark, fleshy, twisting mass of something that was different. And I glanced over at it, and I immediately turned away, because I recognized it as the darkness that I had encountered in the psychedelic state a number of other times. When I had encountered the darkness under the influence of acid, it completely owned me. And when I had encountered my darkness under the influence of psilocybin, I ran from it. But at this point, in this domed enclosure, I actively made the decision to deal with the darkness. And so I turned back towards it, and I moved towards it, and as I willed myself into it, it spread and covered the whole enclosure. And the hallucination changed to this dark and fleshy and black and dirty twisting sensation. At this point, I'm probably about, 45 seconds into the experience. And it becomes so unpleasant that I open my eyes, which I usually don't do until I come completely down. And I look down at myself, and I look down at my body, and I see that I'm naked, and I'm filthy. I can see that I'm covered in this black and purple and green, like pitching, liquidy, fluidy sort of sensation. And I look up at the room around me, and the walls are coming apart, and they're dripping black and purple and green, and everything around me, it kind of echoes this sense of filthiness. My bed was unmade. I had my desk in my room there was papers all over it, and it was all disheveled. And these all kind of reinforced this sense of filthiness. So I forced myself up off the bed, and I was very unsteady on my feet because I was still hallucinating very heavily. And I made my way into my bathroom. The bathroom had dirty laundry on the floor, which continued to reinforce this feeling of filthiness. I opened up the shower door, and, we had a little bit of that, the black mold that from time to time will creep around the edge of your shower, which everybody has a little bit of. But at this point, it was undulating and growing and bubbling and spreading up the walls and across the floor. And the shower floor, it got smaller and smaller as I was looking at it, until it looked like it wasn't even big enough for me to fit inside the shower. But I knew that that wasn't true. I knew that I could fit in my shower. So I turned it on. I waited for a little bit, and then I stepped underneath the water. At this point, I was, hallucinating heavily. The speech part of my brain had been blown completely away, and there was a 26-syllable word that was spinning through my head at a crazy speed, and each syllable of this word was a sound, and each sound had tied to it a different concept, be it a flavor or a color or a person or a face or a feeling or a place. It was all, everything had a meaning, and it was spinning through my head just over and over and over again. And I'm trying to kind of get a hold on this spinning confusion of the speech center of my brain being blown out completely. And the trip starts to take on a new level of unpleasantness, like something is very, very wrong, like something is taking place in my senses. And for a while I can't place it, and then I realize that it was the temperature, and I had neglected to turn the water anything but all the way hot. And so I turned the water down to a reasonable temperature, and I fell down into the lotus position on the floor of my shower. At that point, I centered the flow of the water on the top of my head to open up my 7th chakra. And I rotated myself on the floor in the shower until I felt the pull of energy centered in front of me. And at this point, when I centered myself in front of the energetic field that I could feel flowing, I had opened up to my view the horn of a, what is it called? The old-time music things.
Gramophone?
Yeah, there you go. Gramophone. I had the horn of one that I was looking through. So it kind of looks oddly like a flower, only metallic. And in the center of the hole, there's a bluish-whitish light that I can see. And I anchor myself to that light because I can feel the healing intentions of the energy that's on the other side of this porthole. And as I start to pull the energy towards me, it starts to fan out and fill this blossoming, cone with this kind of pulsing blue-white light. And so I focus harder, and I focus on my 6th chakra to pull the energy into myself. And as I do it, it breaks the confines of this blossoming figure in front of me. It pours itself completely around me. And so now, while I still have this dark, teeming, pitching, twisting hallucination, this fleshy, wet sensation, I'm now encompassed in this egg of white-blue light, and I'm surrounded by it. And it's coursing around me. And I've still got this word that seems to be spinning through my head on a sideways axis. And I don't know how I can explain that it's spinning sideways, but it's It's purple in its nature, and it's spinning sideways and kind of catching me across the side of my head with the meaning of all the different syllables. And so about this time, I'm able to turn the focus of this word so it's spinning forward instead of sideways. I don't know how I can explain how that works, but it does. You can trust me on that. So it's spinning forward, and I'm tying ropes to the meaning of everything. I see my wife. I see purple. I see San Diego. I see jam. I see my sister, and everything that is spinning starts to kind of coalesce, and I see my children, and I see my house, and I see everything, and it's spinning, and now it's going forward, and I'm understanding the flow of all these connections. And these are all the important things. These are my parents, my siblings. It all is flowing. And so then I'm able to kind of focus on the light that's around me. And so I pull it towards myself, and in doing so, I force the darkness towards me. And I pull it towards myself harder, and I force the darkness into me. And as I continue this, the word accelerates, the energy is increasing, and my whole frame is starting to shake kind of with this pulsing energy. And I focus harder, and it gets more intense, and the light gets closer, and I push the darkness more and more. And at this point, I understand. I see the darkness for experiences, things that have shaped me in my past, the things that I have experienced that have caused me to have to shear off a part of myself in order to keep together. In order to remain a sane individual, I had to cut away pieces of me when things have happened in the past. And for the first time, I saw these things, and I owned them, and I saw myself for what I was when these things happened, and I pulled them into me, and the light increased, and I pulled them into my core, and the light increased, and I folded myself around the darkness until it came into me, and I owned it. And at that point, the blue light filled me completely, and I was filled with bliss, absolute bliss, in a way that I can't even remember at this point. I just remember the echoes of the way it felt then. And suddenly, with tears streaming down my face, I was whole. I was connected to myself. And since then, I don't have the anxiety that I used to have. I've completely stopped needing sedatives at night. I don't sedate myself anymore. I don't have any of the mental hang-ups and anxiety loops that I used to have to deal with on a daily basis. And so it was as if I went through 10 years of therapy in 5 minutes.
Can we call this magic?
I call it DMT. Spirit mode.